Good evening and welcome to another episode, well, probably a historic and probably the most important radio broadcast I've ever done since I've been doing radio broadcasts. I'm just over the moon, elated, shocked, amazed, and just generally blown away. And I think those of you who follow the show know what I'm talking about. It's it's the 19th, was it 20th for soon? The 19th of August 2015, and my name is Thomas Sheridan. I'm here on the Velocity of Now on the realitybites.com radio network with Paul at the controls as usual. And apparently you're listening in huge numbers tonight, and not surprising why. We're going to be talking about the Tianjin disaster in China and, well, basically how you guys predicted it. I've also got an indicator of a different location, which I'll talk about later. If you want to support my work, go to thomassheridanarts.com and buy a book. If you have no money or you've already read all my books, you can just share the articles and videos and get the message out there. And boy, are we getting the message out there. Things are just going immense at the moment. I feel like it's finally coming together in terms of the work I've always wanted to do. It's all meshing together and real results. And I love the fact that it's not just me; it's me and you guys. That's what makes what happened recently so amazing. Is it had nothing to do with me. It was you guys that did it, and you're continuing to do it, and you probably will continue to do it. Now, what's happened since the last show? The last show was a pre-recorded show, and we had some technical difficulties. That was actually my fault. That I didn't get the audio recording to the station in time, and it ended up on YouTube. So I apologize to Paula and Reality Bites, and I apologize to you for being no live show last week until YouTube later. But it just happened. I was under tremendous pressure last week. I'm doing a documentary. I'm one of the hosts of a massive documentary that's not going to be finished not going to be out in production for a couple of years, called Megalithic Odyssey. And I'll tell you more. I'm one of the hosts. I'm very honored to be one of the hosts of the documentary series, and I'll tell you more in the weeks ahead. But we began the filming for the Irish part last week, and it was a pretty grueling schedule. It was also an amazing time. I'd been to parts of Ireland, particularly Northern Ireland, and particularly Donegal, which is the most northerly county in the south of Ireland. And I mean, this country just amazes me. This country, it really is staggeringly beautiful and spectacular. And I constantly forget that living here, because it's just Ireland to me. It's just home. But when you go to parts where you never were before, like on the circular stone structure at the top of the hill of Ailey, in just outside Derry City, and you see the immensity of the landscape below you, and you think that maybe 4 or 5 thousand years ago people built this enormous and beautifully built structure, and it still exists. It still exists, and there was all kinds of moments like that. But more than anything else, I'm really starting to get the confirmation of a theory that's been popping in my head a long time ago regarding the origin of these islands, in terms of how humans, why they built the megaliths, what our mythology means. And it's very interesting. I'm not completely convinced, but I'm putting a theory out there that about 6,500 years ago, a comet passed over Ireland, passed over Western Europe. It exploded as it came into the Earth's gravity, similar to how the Levy-Shoemaker comet exploded when it got near Jupiter. It fell into three parts. Now, I'll explain this to you another time, why I say three parts in particular. And it caused a tsunami that sunk all the land areas that connected Ireland to Britain, Britain to Denmark, Ireland, Britain to France, and down to northern Spain and Portugal. and the entire culture and civilization along there was wiped out. Now I'm seeing signs of this everywhere. I don't want to go into too much information just yet because it's an ongoing project, and it will be a product. I hope to produce a book that's independent of the TV show, which deals in megaliths in general. And I'm terribly excited about it. And just like, it's funny. It's just like my work into psychopathy and into the occult aspects of the Nazis. Art and culture always seems to play an enormous part in what is a historic or a sociological insight. When I was researching for the first book on psychopathy, Puzzling People, I was very inspired by John Steinbeck's novels, in particular East of Eden, and the character of Kathy Ames, and also certain films. When I was Walpurgis Night books, I was getting sucked into German cinema of the 1920s and 30s. And it's funny, like when I started to really congeal this idea of what happened on these islands and in this part of Europe, I started rediscovering Lovecraft, and I've come to the conclusion, or I'd like to put it out there, that the megalith builders that extended from Denmark to Portugal and all over the UK and Ireland were probably a kind of a Cthulhu cult, and very much. And I was reading about the Cthulhu cult in The Call of Cthulhu by Lovecraft. At the same time, this was really starting to happen for me in terms of the ideas gelling. And he even mentions in the story about a behaviors of certain communities on the west coast of Ireland. And again, these are the syncs I look for, and the synchronicities and synchromysticism that guide me when I know I'm on the right path. And many of you are too. Even tonight, when I posted a map of Europe 7,000 years ago, Western Europe, with Britain and Ireland at the center of Europe rather than at the fringes. Just then, the BBC posted a story about the same thing. And it's just, these things happen constantly. And one of my friends said they were watching a film about a tsunami, which is how the islands became made islands. And the Isle of Man plays an enormous part in the story. And as I said, all should be revealed in time. But while we were touring the country, we went to one place called Oweynagat Cave in County Roscommon. Now, this part of County Roscommon is filled with barrows, megaliths, cairns, and all the usual buildings that you associate with these megalithic structures and installations and complexes. And the cave opening, I was expecting it to be, I've only seen pictures of it, I was expecting it to be big enough where you could kind of like hunch down or even walk into it. It was literally like crawling into a mouse hole. It was only a couple of feet high and a couple of feet wide. And I crawled in, and like so many of the cairns, there's always a right angle turn when you come in. Well, there's always a right angle turn. And so came in, and there's a box, and we were sitting in the box, and what we came to see was a lintel above the door, which confirmed that Queen Maeve was probably a historic character, because it says, it was the lintel was installed in Ogham script, which is the early Irish form of writing, and it said, Ficra, son of Maeve. And, well, I didn't know that, but that's what it's been translated as by the academics, which is surprising because they were the last ones who'd want to admit that Maeve, a so-called historical figure, existed. And there appears to have been an upright stone that was later on installed on top as a lintel above the cave. So anyway, in the cave, I looked down the tunnel, and it's like potholing. And so James went down first, and then the only phobia I have is claustrophobia. I'm actually claustrophobic, and so going down a cave that's about the width of a refrigerator, not even half the width of a family size refrigerator, half the height and the width of a family size refrigerator that goes for 50 meters under the ground. did not appeal to me. And especially when James went down below, deeper and deeper, and his light disappeared, and he was carrying quite a bright LED battery light, and then the radio signal on the headphones cut out. But then something told me to go down, and then eventually I was the last one to go down. And what was underneath the ground was what was like the King's Chamber in the Red Pyramid of Giza, a corbelled roof that had been channeled out of the natural rock, creating an underground temple. And rituals were still being performed in it because there was little bits of heathen paraphernalia on a kind of an altar, a made altar on the bottom. But while I was going down, though, I noticed this unusual rock and pointed it out to James, and I put my hand on it and it moved, and it actually snapped where I put my hand on it, and the rock broke off like a spear and stabbed and ripped the hole in my trousers. It didn't go into my skin. And I was thinking to myself, that'd make a great spearhead. And the cave was absolutely filthy. I was covered in mud, and that would make a great spear. But then I decided I didn't want to insult the ancestors, so I left there. So in the bottom of the cave, there is a collapsed down place, and apparently it's called Oweynagat, the Cave of the Cats, but it doesn't. I don't think it refers to cats. I think it refers to lynxes, because there was lynxes in Ireland at that time, and there was also a kind of a European lion that existed before that. Who knows? But anyway, there's a wall where it all collapsed down, and there's all stories that there's a cave system that goes right through to the caves of Kesh in Sligo, 30 miles away. And so that was just an amazing experience. We were singing Irish songs and stuff in Irish under the ground, deep where they, like, people had gone for rituals and vision quest thousands of years ago. Of course, I had to do the Derek Acora thing, Mary Lou's dick, for a laugh when we were getting out. But it wasn't. It was an uplifting and amazing experience, and I'm glad I did it and conquered my fear of crawling through a narrow space deep under the ground, because I probably would have regretted the rest of my life if I didn't pluck up the courage and go down. And on the way out, and here's what's interesting with some of the dream thing. What I was saying? I don't know. Are we in dreams, or are when we awake and are when we dreaming two different states of reality? And I believe that it is, and that's what I'm trying to achieve with this sleep project. I'm trying to recapture what the Somnonauts did in France 100 years ago, who believed that sleep was another version of existence, that not just rest. It's not the same as napping. And I'm trying to see if we can recapture that and see if there's something useful in there, and or we can enhance our lives or enjoy our lives or have experience our lives better. And when I came out of the cave, I know I'm a bit out of breath tonight. I've got a bit of a head cold, and I'm taking a lot of asthma medicine, so forgive me for that. But when I came out of the cave, covered in mud, and emerged into the daylight, it was like a dream. It was like a dream. It was just like the sensation you have when you're dreaming. This out of body and almost sense of weightlessness. And this seems to be what the megalith builders were constantly trying to express, this idea of weightlessness. That's why they put 170-ton dolmens on top of 3 stones, or put the cross beams, the lintels across the top of the uprights of Stonehenge. There's almost like this need for them to be weightless, this need for them to conquer weight. And so when I came out of the cave into the daylight, I got a high, and it felt very otherworldly. The experience of going from the subterranean world into the daylight world, and that kind of confirmed to me as well that I cannot no longer say there's a difference between sleeping and dreaming. I just think there's sleeping and waking. I just think they're two different realities, and we've gotten really good at one, the awake reality, but we've lost so much of our ability to live in the sleep reality. Now, I have a cat called Benny, and Benny is a lovely big black and white male cat, but the fucker just only sleeps. That's all he does. He literally sleeps 23 hours a day. And I mean, he's as good as gold. He's a cat that causes no problems, and he's a lovely nature about him. But the bastard sleeps 23 hours a day. And I mean, I used to I'd joke and play with him and wake him up and says, "Wake up, lad! What are you going to do with your life?" And he's very good natured about it. And then he'd play for 5 minutes with the other cats and then go back to sleep, or have something to eat, or take whatever he does. And he's obsessed with sleep. And when I watch him sleeping, I can see him moving, and he's in another reality. He's not wasting his life. He's just choosing to only spend 1 hour a day in the wake reality, and he's got things going on in the 23 hours in the 23 hours of the sleep reality. And so maybe that's what we should be doing as well. Not doing them 50-50, whatever. But instead of people say, "Oh, you sleep your life away." Well, maybe if we start to understand sleep can be useful in terms of other things, maybe we're not sleeping our lives away. We're just having a full, complete life, and they never told us about it. And so that was that. That just so I went away. I was absolutely wrecked after the trip. When I got and I had to go do my regular job on Saturday and Sunday, and it was over. And literally on Sunday night, I had a pizza and a couple of beers with some friends. Went home about 7 p.m. Went straight to bed and slept until noon or so the next day. And that's a long sleep for me. But all the synchronistic things were happening at the same time. Now, back to sleep again and back to dreaming. Well, you know what I'm going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about how for the last 3 weeks I began every program by saying, you keep having dreams about China. You keep having dreams about China, and they're always negative. In some of them, you were treated badly by a Chinese-looking person. In other ones, you had dreams of choking on Chinese food. In other ones, you had dreams of being afraid of some Chinese things, and so on. And not in a racist kind of way or anything like that, but it was like China became associated with danger. One of you actually said, and I shit you not, I had a dream of an industrial accident in China. That was 3 weeks ago. And another one had a dream that you were in a building, a tall apartment building in China, and all the windows were blown out of it. Now, I thought it would take 6 months before we'd get a half-assed result that people would say is not a result. But within 1 month of the dreaming experiment, we hit the lotto. All that was missing was the name of the city. That was it. All that was missing was that. Now, that's even interesting as well, because me and lots of you on Facebook have been talking about the jinn so much. There's a different subject, but we're talking about jinn so much. And the name of the city where the explosion happened was Tianjin. Now, I was the other day, or like last weekend. Yeah, that was the other day. I've lost track of time. The RT News, that's the national broadcaster here in Ireland, was on, and in the background I could hear the reporter, constantly saying Tianjin, Tianjin. Like she kept announcing the jinn part, and I thought that was kind of freaky. And so maybe that was part of this kind of this countdown towards it. But when I look at the videos and I see the explosion, we haven't seen anything like this since 9/11. Now, there's an enormous crater there, and it's flooded with seawater. Let's hope that something has not caused an enormous environmental catastrophe to the point where thousands or maybe tens of thousands are dead or could die. There is some drone footage going around of the explosion site, Now, some people say it was a nuke. I don't think it was a nuke. At first, I was thinking, Jesus, could it be? Especially when I saw the video of the guy waiting in his car by a barrier, and the second explosion came along, and that kind of proves it's not a nuke, because you don't get two explosions with a nuke, because when a nuclear bomb goes off, reality doesn't exist where the explosion is anymore. That's literally what happens. Reality doesn't exist, and you could not get a secondary explosion. Now, the secondary explosion on this video, where the guy's sitting in it, has a dashboard cam, the car, and you see the shockwave literally traveling down the street from about a mile away and lifts the car up. Now, that's a ferocious explosion from that distance. And there's no way on what they said initially 44, and now they're saying something like 100 dead. There's way more than that have to be killed, because that thing, a lot of people are killed by explosions nearby them because they have internal trauma damage. They have organ failure from the shock. It's just like being in a car or plane crash. The organs are shattered. You don't have to have any shrapnel hit you or any fire hit you. The sheer shock will shatter organs, stop the heart, or cause brain damage, sometimes even wreck the spine and cause the spinal fluid to drain out into the skin, into the bottom of the body, and that kills people. I mean, that's how dangerous shock and trauma is. See, that's why you can have people who are dead from accidents and they look like they're perfectly intact. The shock wave or the hit did it. And they're all, if you open them up, their insides are all smashed to bits, though they look good on the outside. Now, there was what strikes me about this is you don't see anybody in the videos, and the Chinese government declared an exclusion zone. Okay, fair enough. Suppose it was some kind of chemical or something like that you would have to do that. But they show videos of the firemen working down there with no safety gear. So there is no chemical. I suspect what blew up was an ammo dump, an illegal arms cache, probably stored in containers. And this is where it's going to get very interesting, because who was those explosives going to, and where does the paper trail lead? Especially all you have to do is look back at the Iran-Contra days, how the CIA created all these kind of bizarre routes to get weapons to the Contras that involved all kinds of machinations and scams. And that's really what's interesting me. And on a very disturbing level, someone took a drone footage of the explosion site, and you all saw the videos on TV where the fireball towered above these skyscrapers, these apartment skyscrapers, which are like 60, 70 stories tall, which are all over China. On the front of a bunch of them, not the ones immediately where the explosion is, but back from them, it looked like very nice apartment buildings. Not only are all the windows in the apartment building facing the blast area gone, but in many cases the steel and aluminium doors and window frames have been ripped off their hinges, showing the enormity of the shock wave that went through those frames. That it was so powerful that it didn't even bother with the fecking glass. It took the aluminium and steel frames off their casings, off the sills, and pushed them into the apartment. Now, they would have flown in there at tremendous speed, and anyone standing between that and the wall would have been squashed. It would have been like hitting with a car. There is also, in the video, furniture and beds halfway out into the balconies. That means the shockwave went in there, rebounded off the back walls, and threw the furniture out the windows and into the balconies. I'm very worried that building where it shows every apartment of 50, 60 stories, whatever it is, like that, if everybody in that building was killed. In fact, I would be shocked if they were not killed. I would be absolutely shocked if they were not killed. I think the death toll is immense. I think it's enormous. And I think because China has a morality vacuum, and I'm not saying that because they're Chinese or it's a racial or anything like that. Unfortunately, if you feck with a society enough, you create things like this. Like, They had their cultural revolution only in the 60s, where Muppets were going around. Basically, a cult opera. The country was an entire cult, and there was mass murders going on in the names of the Cultural Revolution by the Chinese Communist Party. These they, and this makes people, and you hear about how they kill baby girls there, and that famous one a few years ago, the baby girl found alive in the pipe flushed down the toilet. Well, that was only made news because she was alive. Those kind of things happen there all the time, and it's not because there's something wrong with the Chinese as people. There's a morality and a decency vacuum caused by the society and how the psychopaths who run it have made the people that way. So if I believe that I suspect is, and I hope, well, I suspect that was a massive illegal arms cache that blew up in the harbour. Something happened and it blew up in the harbour. The shockwave and the concussion is typical of how munitions blow up, not chemical plants which blow up into the sky and burn off. I mean, I saw a huge 50-gallon tank of kerosene, a plastic one, go up in flames, and it just shoots up into the sky and burns out, and there's not even a bang. This thing had a shockwave like munitions blowing up, like ordnance blowing up. That was the shockwave. So I'd nearly bet money there was someone in there had some dodgy stuff stored, illegal weapons, and that's why the Chinese government immediately blacked out the news on it and arrested the company holders, so they couldn't get out there and squeal about who bought the weapons it was going to. Also, the media have played this story down unbelievable. Now, look at the mileage they got out of Cecil the Lion story and compare it to this. A lion a lion gets shot by a Texan dentist in Zimbabwe, and the mainstream media goes feckin' mental, absolutely mental, for a week on end. The biggest explosion caught on cameras, even much bigger than 9/11, gets a quick mention and is forgotten about. Who is hiding what? And the fact that you guys had dreams about this, and I got the numbers here, it was 38 women had negative dreams about China in the 3-week span, and 22 men. So well done, ladies. You are well ahead of the fellas in busting the matrix wide open. And reported them to me, or maybe you're just better at keeping dream diaries. But anyway, thank you, ladies, and thank you to the guys who did that. So 60 in total. Now, it was not to be unexpected, right? A while back, it must be nearly a year now, I got this awful feeling that something was coming that would not be revealed directly or something, or it was behind the scenes or something. And then I saw in the alternative media movement and social media is a great one to monitor, because a lot of people who are into the sort of truth of things, they're not mentally there together. They're very rational, so they're good psychic windmills and weather vanes, and a lot of them are on the weed. They're smoking weed constantly, and the combination of being unstable and smoking weed constantly makes their neuroses extremely powerful, and they deteriorate quickly, so you can watch it. Now, in the run up to this, let's look at some of the events that we have to deal with, right? First of all, I had the sense of something mad was coming down. I was noticing a psychic deterioration in general, and I wrote an article on a website called The Danzig Effect, basically talking about that, and the idea of Renfields, that Renfields were the guy in this Dracula movie who they used to tell from them, these familiars, they could tell from them if something bad was coming. Like, I was talking to Maria Wheatley, and she used to work I shouldn't say this probably, but she worked as a psychiatric nurse, and she said if if a psychiatric patient started doing something in the south of England, it would be reported like something strange. It would happen at the same time in Scotland and also in Wales, that the psychiatric patients, the very ill ones, would start demonstrating the same behaviors all around the country at the same time, independent of each other. That's why you watch the unwell. They're useful to us because they're not fully in this reality. They can be good weather vanes for psychic disturbances in the field that we should take notice of. Then, along with that sense of something wrong and that mental deterioration, there was a progressive in craziness towards Tianjin coming along. First, you had the Hitler cult, where suddenly all the Truthers became neo-Nazis and started falling in love with Hitler and started, they was indistinguishable from hardcore white nationalist extremists. That was mainstream Truther bullshit for a while. After after ages of them saying everything is love, unconditional love is the only truth, here they all were praising Hitler and the SS. That was the first one that set off our alarm bells, right? Then we had the flat Earth cult. The flat Earth became and remember the Hitler cult is gone and the flat Earth cult is pretty much gone by now. So these are psychosis. They're not real. If they had any mileage in them, they'd still be going. But because they're products of and ignited by unstable minds, that they don't last that long because they're just almost like irrationality trends. Then we got the flat Earth cult, and a lot of the motherfuckers who were into the Hitler cult jumped right into the flat Earth cult. Suddenly they thought the Earth was flat. This is beyond mental illness. This is it's the easiest thing in the world to prove that the Earth is round. You should. It's like trying to prove is water wet. It's just one of those things. You just know and can be easily proven. You don't have to go through a mountain of word salad to disprove it like the flat earthers have to do. And that was the second level. So we had unstable and irrational people becoming neo-Nazis, and then the same unstable, irrational. This is described with the truth movement because there's so many whack jobs in it. You can really be useful for this. Then the flat earthers did that, and then the final and the most psychotic level, before the initial explosion of psychic energy, was the Hampstead thing, the Hoaxstead, the whole thing of them eating babies in Hampstead, and all these pieces of shit sharing names of people, and all the ones the parents who did abuse the children being held up as heroes by the truthers, while innocent people's lives were destroyed. And that was the most hysterical. I will never forget the video of them walking around, following people around Hampstead, outside the church with cameras going, paedophile, Satanist, all this kind of thing. And they had been tumbling into psychosis, plus the odd idiot like showing there's true mental illness on my Facebook page and so on. And the Danzig effect really took off because right before the Tianjin thing happened, anyone who knows my Facebook page knows that some of the people on it went absolutely fucking bonkers over absolutely nothing. And that was really the crash of the cymbal before the overture began. So the other ones are just build-ups. And then here was me for nearly a month saying you're all dreaming about China. I don't know why China keeps coming up. And then someone said, well, they devalued the currency there. Well, that's no big deal. The countries constantly devalue currencies. That's how they maintain their balance of payments. That's hardly a major event. There's nothing strange about that. Unless you read natural news, they'd have you believe that when a country devalues its currency, it means it's going to be World War III, even though it happens everywhere. So, as you guys, the ones who were tuned and were paying attention, and taking down notes from your dreams and sending them to me. And the data mining software kept picking up China, 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 and it's still picking up China, by the way. It's still picking up China. And I've got another location for you, which I'll give to you in a bit. It's still picking up China. It was just amazing. It was just amazing. You hacked the matrix. Now, I don't know why you did it and how it did it, except that I can only speculate. It's things like, when we're in the sleeping world, we are not bound to the same clock speed that our waking brain operates in, and therefore we are not bound to the space-time continuum of the waking world. And therefore, because time is non-linear in the sleeping and dreaming world, we can see into the future somewhat and see into the past. And like mythology, because our subconscious mind is incredibly ancient, much more older than our conscious mind, it uses the notion of allegory and stories to tell you things in a way that doesn't cause you trauma. But in this case, it said to people, "Feckin' China," and it happened. It absolutely happened. I'm really proud of you guys over this, because I'm not some lunatic sitting around the Ouija board channeling myself in the future and pretending to make up predictions that never come true, or else they're really crazy ones like that. The chances are millions to one, like a space object hitting the Earth, that I know will never happen in my lifetime. You guys did this. I'm just the secretary. I'm just the administrator. So you never, ever, ever again have to waste your time paying attention to channelers, psychics, or anyone else who thinks they know the future. Because you know what? You know the fucking future. You proved it to me this month. And you proved it to yourself. And this thing is like a muscle. the more you work it, the better you'll get at it. So don't let this be the end of this. This is the start. Keep on doing it. Even if this show goes off the air, keep making those dream diaries and dream journals, because they're so good for you that they're helping you explore another reality that's normally closed off to you. And you don't have to take drugs or anything like that. It shows the power. You literally hacked the matrix yourself. And because it was a group effort, all of you doing it, even the ones of you that didn't predict China, you were all part of a collective unconscious, so we say, teamwork, that the ones who were seeing it, you were actually adding to their strength. So it was almost like the ones who were seeing China, even though the ones who were taking part in the experiment and not seeing things in China, you were actually almost like you were like those like human pyramids, where you guys are holding these chaps up at the bottom, and these 38 women and 22 fellas at the top were seeing China in the distance. So that's what we all worked together on this. There was no winners and no losers. You did it. I can't think of anything in the history of radio, alternative media, that even comes close to this. This is astounding. This is incredible. And I feel extremely privileged just to be the toe rag who just copied and pasted your dreams into a data mining program. How much do you feel the ones that actually predicted it? You don't need to ever contact another psychic or channel again. You've proven that every last one of us have this ability for real. For real. Now, so, and China's still coming up, although with smaller numbers this week. Now, regarding some of you, the rest of you, the most recent bout, and it's been only 2 weeks worth of dreams I was looking at. It was 13 days actually. To be honest with you, you were all over the place, Motius, but that's okay, because this may reveal itself down the road. Now, some of you, I think, were probably just being taken a bit, or just, I don't know if you're wishful thinking or whatever, but they were very obvious. Oh, you're going to be arrested, and people were being arrested and put in FEMA camps. I'm not saying you didn't have the dreams, But I'm just saying you have to be, I doubt that that's going to happen. But thanks for telling me anyway, and it goes into the database and this kind of thing. Other ones were I got several women saying they have sex dreams of me. Thanks very much. That went into the database too, unfortunately for me. And don't worry, your privacy, although you made sure to send your name and phone number, will be protected. And thanks very much for, shall we say, that endorsement, whether it was real or not. And so that was it. So we got a spectacular success. That's just the end of it. We hacked the matrix. We proved the collective unconscious is real, and we proved that sleeping and dreaming is much more than resting your body, and that it's not limited to space-time continuum, and you can predict the future. It happened. That's the end of it. Now, okay, this week there was only one thing that came up more than once, and actually 5 people came up with it, and that's actually pretty high. So we need to pay attention. Paris came up in 5 people's dreams. They were walking through the streets of Paris, or they were in Paris in the rain or in a storm, or they were just walking through Paris and they had no clothes on. So Paris. So the new one we're still keeping an eye out for China, and we have to watch this Tiana Jin story to see how it develops, because I think the Chinese government are lying through their teeth, and that thing is much worse than it is. And time will reveal. Just look at the bleeding crater already full of seawater. Will reveal that, and Paris. So we have to keep watching these 2 ones. So keep an eye on China. And look at Paris. Now, and keep sending me the dreams, because no matter what they're about, even if they don't do anything, they're still important. Now, I want to break from format here. Well, not really. And tell you about the dreams I've been having. Now, I haven't told you really about my dreams, and I have been adding them to the database, but I've hit nothing. I didn't dream China or anything like that, or the Barcelona thing, or any of that stuff that happened prior to that didn't happen to me. And I definitely haven't had a dream of Paris. But since I got out of the cave, I've been having very powerful dreams since Monday. So that's Sunday night and Tuesday night, last night, and so 2 nights. And the dreams and last night they were like turbo dreams. They were like coming one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. Now, this dream was very strange, okay, but I'll basically describe it to you, okay. I was in a backyard of a house, of a property. And in there was a kind of a sacrificial fire in the shape of a square. And all during the dream and the dreams around it, this fire, this sacrificial fire of like burning rocks and coal and whatever, was central to it at the side of the garden. Now, how I arrived at it was very strange. I was traveling down a river. I was traveling down a river, wading up to my chest in the river and the water. And I came to almost like a T-junction in the river, where the river ended and came to a canal. Now, the canal was dead. A canal is different than a river because it's dead straight like a road. And I knew it was a canal because it had a towpath. But I couldn't get into the canal because there was loads of boats going by at high speed. Now, they weren't canal barges. They were big. They weren't big ships like big container ships or cruise ships, but they were big ships. And then suddenly one of them's pulled in front of me, which was a small passenger ferry, and it sank to the bottom of the canal. Now, I don't know what that means, if it's to do with the Manchester thing, if that case is going to collapse, if there's someone trying to stop me from finding information about the potential of a serial killer being there. if I'm all wrong about it, if I'm gone down the wrong path, if I've made a mistake, if the ship of my theory is sinking, if there's going to be an accident involving a passenger ferry. I don't know. I don't know. But it was a very, very intense and real life scene. Now then I got to I walked where the boat sank to the other bank of the canal. So that'd be the top of the T-shaped waterway where the T would be, where the two lines of the T would meet, and stepped onto the bank and found myself in the backyard where the burning fire sacrificial fire was a square. Then a fish jumped out of the water, and it was a cute little fish. It was like a John Dory, you know those ones that are kind of flat on the bottom, or a mud skipper, like one of them things. And I was going, oh, I better get this little fella and put him back in the water. And so I picked him up and had a look at him, and he was dead cute, and I stroked him, and I said, "You're going back to the river." And the fish jumped out of my hand and landed on deliberately landed on the ground, and then deliberately made its way towards a sacrificial fire, and to my horror jumped onto a piece of burning red hot coal deliberately to kill itself, suicide. And I was shocked, and the fish, just like it was burnt to a crisp in front of me. It shows being burnt alive on a fire rather than going back into the water from where it came from. Now, is that to do with the Tianjin? Is it to do with the water being poisoned? But the fire wasn't an explosion or anything like that. It was like a fire, like hot coals. It was that kind of fire on a kind of in a square. And then this woman who I'm friends with here in Ireland, that I haven't seen for about a year, nice lady, came up to me and she was crying, and she started like hugging me and saying she was so afraid to leave me, so afraid to leave this area, and so afraid to get away from where we were. And I was like trying to comfort her, saying like, "Don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's cool." And she's saying things. No, you don't understand. If I leave you now, you'll never see me again. So that was kind of upsetting too. And I know the woman is fine because I just spoke to her recently. So nothing happened to her. And that was when I woke up, I was absolutely shitting bricks about that something happened to her. And so that didn't happen. She's all right. Well, I didn't say I had a dream about her, but I just had a quick chat with her before I went on air. And so that was now I have weird dreams all the time, like we all do. But what was strange about this dream was how intense it was, how visceral it was, and how it was not like a dream. It was like I could hold the fish I could feel his flapping and his wee tail flicking against me. I could I could feel the sand on his body. I could feel his little flippers on the side going. And when he jumped out of my hand, I felt the sensation of him leaving my hand. And when I approached the fire, and this is something I've never experienced in a dream, I felt the heat from the fire. You know what I'm saying? Like it was real. I wasn't, like if you were to ask me, when I came out of the cave at Oweynagat, and you said to me, how you felt at that moment you stood up after getting out of a hole in the ground, compared to this dream that you had of the fish on the square, which of the two experiences were the most real in how you felt them on a sensory and a perceptive level? And I would say, without beyond a doubt, the dream with the T-shaped canal, the sinking ferry, and the little fish committing suicide, and the woman saying that I was never going to see her again if she left. That was more real in terms of how it felt. Now, where I'm going with this is, I think this is part of the dream experiment as well. I think that as we're all doing this together, God, there must be a couple of hundred now people doing it, if my emails are anything to go by. That again, like the human pyramid, because we're all involved in this together, we're all helping each other to become deeper in the dream, if you know what I mean. So because we paid attention to it, and it's like a muscle, and we're working it, our dreams are becoming super real now. Not just that they predict things, but they actually, like what happened in China, but also that they become a more real experience. That sleep is not just something you do at the end of the day when you're wrecked tired, but it's a journey into another world, and we're going in there. When babies are born, and when a baby is first born, its eyesight isn't the best for a few weeks, and then it starts looking around, and it has good eyesight. It's white. It's the lenses start working, the retina start firing, and the part of the brain, the vision part of the brain at the back, starts really learning how to process. And suddenly, the little baby is looking around, staring like this, that, and like staring because it's seeing things, and it's giggling when it sees the mobile over its cot, or it's laughing when it sees like a funny thing. Well, that's like what could be happening us. We're 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 like the baby who's just been born in this reality, who's opening their eyes in this in our reality, awakened reality, and getting a thrill out of the new sensory experience, and seeing things for the first time. This is probably what's happening to us now in the dream and sleep world. I'm suspecting. I'm not that intelligent enough about this stuff yet. I'm learning like the rest of you. But this could be what's happening. Our eyes are beginning to work in dream world. Our perception is becoming clear, and we're beginning to see things much more realistically in dreams. So if any of you are noticing that since you've taken part or started your dream journals, that the dreams are becoming more like, they're more clearer. There's more feelings of sensation in them. They seem to have far more deeper meanings, both the good ones and the bad ones. Tell me about it, because I think we need to know about these things. I suspect it's not just me that the dreams are becoming more concrete, shall we say. I also notice that I'm sleeping much better as well, because I go to bed excited about what I'm going to dream about. It's almost like going on a holiday. As silly as that sounds, I now feel like when I go to bed at night, when I fall asleep, I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to have a new experience. And I do. And as a result, I'll close the minute I hit the sack. I'll fall asleep real quick, and then I literally jump out of bed in the morning, feeling fully refreshed and having a sensation of slept very well. This could be one of the reasons people who even get a good night's sleep and wake up in bits the next morning, or they're as knackered as when they wake up, is probably because of a lack of intense dreaming. Because it's been shown that dreaming happens in REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and that's the deepest sleep of all. People go to bed, not very few people go to bed thinking, oh, I can't wait to go and dream. I can't wait to dream and wake up the next morning and think about what I saw in my dream and all this. You were never told to do that. But that's what I'm doing now. And as a result, I'm getting the best night's sleep I've gotten in ever. Ever. I'm literally sleeping like a baby. wow. I mean, what have we done here on this this small radio station? No disrespect to those the lads and guys in Florida, and these programs. What have we done? I mean, it's I was looking around the internet today, YouTube today, and seeing all these new age flakes and liars, and all these mystics and psychics, and all these other channelers, and they're absolute and total amateurs compared to you guys. You guys can actually hit the target when you do this. I mean, just think about that. It also bonds us all in our humanity at a very beautiful level in a world where we don't have any clothes on. It's almost like all our uniforms and labels and badges and identities have been stripped down to our pure consciousness, and it's that consciousness that enters into the dream. So it's a level playing field. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how good looking you are, how anything. It doesn't matter. The dream world refuses no initiate. That's what I think the people who went into Oweynagat cave wanted. I think that's what the vision quests were about. It's like they wanted to dream out loud. It's like that book, The Mind in the Cave, written by your man, I think his name is Lewis Williams, David Lewis Williams or David Williams Lewis. I'm not sure. A very good book, and it's an academic book, but written very, very, very concisely and clearly. He talks about the stages of the different caves in France and the movement through the dream world towards a vision quest. And these people were going deep underground for various reasons, but I think not only to see the simulacras and see the phosphenes and so on, and to imagine the shapes of them, but also they were. I'm telling you, when I was down that place there, I was in the dream world, and when I came out into the daylight, when I was covered in mud, coming out through the small hole in the ground, I wasn't in this reality for a few minutes. I was actually having a trip, but a trip without drugs, a trip. Well, and it wasn't because of sensory deprivation, because there's plenty of oxygen down there. The wind was howling through that cave. That's what we know, that behind the walls and where the stones fell, there probably is, rock works that go on further. But I that's what happened. And so we only got a minute here left now. I want to thank you all for allowing me the privilege to compile this magic. Now, it's a great tragedy that the lives have been lost, and we must never lose focus of that. But I think one of the ways we could honor them is to continue, even like I said, even if the program doesn't exist anymore, continue working on this, because the day will come, if we constantly do it, could happen where we don't say China, but we can actually say Tianjin, an explosion on a certain date, and actually help people get away. Just like animals know when a tsunami or an earthquake is coming, I think they use the same senses, and we could do that too. So wow, that hour flew by, which I expected it. Thank you very, very much all for listening again. I'll see you next week, and feck 'em if they can't take a joke. Thank you.